most popular videos on this channel is about phrasing. This idea that when we're playing a piece of music, we're not just playing a series of notes, one after another, but instead we're trying to communicate an idea. In that video, I talked about what phrasing is and how we can start to use it in our playing. But today, I want to talk about what it feels like to phrase something and how we can find it within the music. Perhaps the best example to show this is not to use music, but to read from a book. If I read this sentence out loud, you can hear how there's a natural shape to the phrase. He's absorbed in the music. He taps his foot and bobs his head in time to it. And yet, he is not completely taken up with it, for he is also thinking about what and who he wants to be. There's this feeling of a beginning and an end. All the words come together to form one idea. If I take away the phrasing and the punctuation and just read the words one after another, it becomes a lot more difficult to communicate this idea. He is absorbed in the music, he taps his foot and bobs his head in time to it, and yet he is not completely taken up with it, but he is also thinking about what and who he wants to be. It's so much more tiring to listen to someone speaking like that, and it just doesn't feel natural or human. Well, as we know, music very much follows this same idea, except in music we don't have punctuation to help us find the phrasing. And also, we're probably not as fluent in the musical language as we are our native language. Anyway, here are some ways in which we can identify musical phrasing. The first and most obvious way is to look for phrase marks. These clearly identify the phrase, but they're not too common and you probably won't see them very much. Another key part of any phrase is a cadence, and a cadence is just a musical ending. So if we see a cadence, chances are we're at the end of a phrase. We can also look for rests or breaks in the music. They provide a natural feeling of an ending because we actually have that gap between the notes. Often it's common to think of these rests as like a breath when we're speaking, similar to a comma or a full stop in a book. Just to be clear, this isn't a full stop, it's the rests I'm talking about rather than this dotted note. But perhaps the best and most important way is to try and identify phrasing through listening to the music. As you're working through a piece, even if it's something new, it's important to always try and phrase what you're playing. Listen for natural shaping in the melody, moments of tension and release, and see if you can find a way to group the notes together into one idea, and then try and communicate that to the listener. Phrasing is one of the most important things we can do as a musician. It helps to make the music sound natural and human. So try and think about these ideas as you're practicing, and then when you're playing, try and communicate these ideas to the audience.